All right, good afternoon, everybody. Again, for those of you who haven't been here before, I'm Andy Barr, Communications Director for the campaign. Joining me, as always, is Mark Elias, our lead recount attorney. We think we had a really good day yesterday. And I would note, before we get to the part that matters, the actual counting, that yesterday was, I believe, the fourth time that we have been in opposition to the Coleman campaign on a legal matter in the last few weeks. If you count the 2 counts of unfair campaign practices, the lawsuit to throw out ballots based on the myth of the trunk ballots, and our effort to obtain public data from counties. And it was the fourth time the court has ruled in our favor. Meanwhile, the state canvassing board has debunked Coleman arguments ranging from Norm Coleman has been declared the winner of this election 3 times to the state canvassing board has no authority to look at whether absentee ballots were properly rejected, to looking at that issue would delay or stop the recount. And pretty much everyone, including most folks here, have now put to rest the false notion that the vote shifts we saw during the canvass were, in the Coleman campaign's words, quote, improbable and statistically dubious. So we feel pretty good about that. But yesterday was the first day of the count, of course, and having had the chance to stay up extremely late here, analyzing the information we got back from yesterday's results, I do have to say we are feeling confident, in Al's words yesterday, cautiously optimistic about the direction things are headed in. We have both qualitative and quantitative reasons for our cautious optimism. And as you might expect, Mark here is going to be getting into some of the more quantitative reasons. But I would note before I turn it over to him that it's becoming increasingly clear that national Republicans are beginning to realize that, in fact, Senator Coleman has not been declared the winner of the race, and in fact, growing concerned about his chances of ultimately winning the race. Apparently, saying it over and over again doesn't even convince his own party. Mark Ambinder of The Atlantic reported yesterday on his blog that Republicans are, quote, fairly pessimistic about Coleman's chances. One of Norm Coleman's colleagues, remaining anonymous for what I guess are understandable reasons, has even started to speculate on what Coleman's next job might be, suggesting that he would make a good chair of the Republican National Committee. But all of that aside, like I said, we said yesterday that we weren't going to make any judgments based on sort of the anecdotal evidence that we'd heard after the first few hours of counting. We asked that you guys give us the night to get a day's worth of information in, have a chance to crunch some numbers, see where the data was coming from, importantly, and try to get a sense of where we are and how we should feel about it. We've had a chance to do that, and so I want to turn it over to Mark to talk a little bit more about where we think we stand.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you all for coming again today. We do, in fact, feel very good about how the first day of the recount went. I know there have been some other quantitative projections made based on the numbers posted on the Secretary of State's website last night, and we are going to refrain from making projections and instead let the count itself play out. That said, I do think there are some things that can be pointed out for the sake of context as we go through the next few days. All of this, everything I'm about to speak on, is based on data that we have based on the end of last night. This would include data that was after the 8 p.m. cutoff for the Secretary of State's website. As you know, there were counties that were either still counting. In the case of Olmsted County, they counted much past 8 p.m. And in other instances, there were counties that may not have gotten their data in time for the 8 p.m. cutoff. So everything I'm about to talk about is for data that we have compiled. As you know, we have people in every counting location and indeed at every counting table. So this is based on that data. It does not include anything from today. So this is all from last night back, day one, so to speak. As I said, we know this because we have observers at every site, and we were able to note not only the raw count but also the rulings of the election judges. So we know how essentially the ballots were called at the table. A few observations on what we learned based on day one. First, we believe that through last night, 26.5% of the ballots were hand counted, and that that represents slightly 3% more of the Coleman vote, more Republican vote than was true during the election. And nevertheless, we pulled up, we picked up a significant chunk of votes. So in other words, the ballots counted yesterday were more Republican than the total ballot pool will end up being. So it was a slightly redder pile, so to speak, that was counted yesterday versus what it will finally be. And notwithstanding that slightly redder hue, we picked up votes yesterday. In fact, we believe that number is higher than the 43 votes reflected on the Secretary of State's official margin. And again, the difference is because we have data that went later into the night. In Hennepin County, only 29.5% of the vote was recounted as of last night. And we believe, based on our analysis, we picked up a net of 16 votes in Hennepin County. In the portion of Hennepin County already recounted, we received 49% of the two-way vote. In the portion not yet recounted, we received 62% of the vote. So again, we picked up votes in Hennepin County, notwithstanding the fact that the portions of Hennepin that have been recounted were more red than the full county will be when it is all counted. In Ramsey County, 17% of the vote has been recounted. We gained 26 net votes. In the portion of Ramsey County not yet recounted, we won 59% of the two-way vote. And you'll notice with each of these statistics, we are just doing a two-way vote. We're just doing a Franken Coleman, because obviously that's what we're all focused on in the recount. In St. Louis County, 16% of the vote was recounted. We gained a net of 41 votes. We won 62% of the two-way vote in the portions of the county not yet recounted. But this is not just about how we did in blue counties. The fact is, one of the most interesting, at least interesting to me, facts of yesterday and significant things from yesterday is that we did well in red areas as well. For instance, in Olmsted County, a county which we won only 44.7% of the two-way vote, we nevertheless netted 5 votes. So we netted votes in what was a solidly Republican county. And as you know, Olmsted completed their count last night. So from our standpoint, we have reason to be optimistic. We are picking up votes across the state. Some places we are picking them up in big chunks. Other places we are picking them up 1 or 2 at a time. But as we have said from the outset, we are confident that when all of the votes have been hand counted and the results are in, we believe that they will reflect that more Minnesotans cast ballots for Al Franken than for Norman. With that, we will take any questions.
And again, just as per usual, in the room first, on the phone second.
What legal options are available to you if this recount does not go in your favor? What, looking ahead past this, what kind of legal?
Yeah, I hate to do this because I do this each time. I'm not looking beyond where we are. We're in day 2 of a recount, and we are right now focused on day 2 of that count. And I'm not going to speculate on kind of where things could go and where things wouldn't go after that. The fact is, I was accused when I got here of perhaps planning to go to the Supreme Court. That seems to have fallen by the wayside. The closest we have come is to file a single lawsuit in Ramsey County District Court, which we prevailed on, as you know, yesterday. And we are taking it step by step and letting this process play out.
What do you make of the size of the challenge pile? And are you seeing a tit for tat type of situation?
Yeah, a number of you asked me this yesterday about challenges. We remain, number one, we continue to analyze the materials and the data as they come into us. And we are starting to get an opportunity to pour through the challenges on both sides. There are clearly some instances, a significant number of instances, where the Coleman campaign has challenged ballots which are clearly Franken votes, where there's no question that the canvass board is going to look at this ballot and determine that it was a Franken vote. We are concerned about that. It is something that we continue to pay attention to, and may or may not have more to say on it as the days move forward. But I can now, yesterday I told you that there was anecdotal evidence of frivolous challenges. I think I can now say with greater confidence that we have seen examples of challenges that clearly are non-meritorious and will not be upheld by the Canvas Board. Where that winds up going, we'll see. It may be that the Coleman campaign was a little over-exuberant on day one and will now settle into a more reasonable posture going forward.
Since this is being done at many different locations across the state, there are differences that are coming out, including with challenges in Ramsey County, for instance. They whittled down the pilot challenges to one at the end of the day. St. Louis County, I think there were 43, according to the Secretary of State's numbers. How important are those differences? That this is a statewide recount, but local officials really do rule and are creating different rules.
Well, it's, the fact is that the parties, the campaigns have the ability to challenge. So regardless of how it gets ruled at the local site, if the Franken campaign or the Coleman campaign wants to challenge a ballot, it is their right to do so. There is obviously a ban on frivolous challenges, which is what I was mentioning that I am somewhat concerned about. But it may be that the Coleman campaign in some counties has a strategy of more challenges. I would hate to think that that's the case, and I'm not prepared to draw that conclusion. But it is possible that is their strategy.
Do you have an observation as to Minnesota's voting system and recount system as it is proceeding here, as it compares with other states where you may have undertaken this type of thing?
Yeah, I have to say, number one, I don't think enough good things are said about the local election administrators and workers. I was when I was first asked questions about this whole process, I was taken aback a little bit by the Coleman campaign's attacks on the local election administrators and the jobs they were doing in the canvass and finding errors. I mean, the fact is these people are up all day long, well into the night. They go home, they get a good night's sleep, they come back, they canvass the results, and their job is to find clerical and other errors. And in return for that, they got attacked by the Coleman campaign, in some cases fairly savagely and unfairly. I think that we're seeing that, not the attacks. I think we're seeing those workers coming out again now and running a recount under extraordinary circumstances. They counted 25% of the vote yesterday in a single day. I mean, that is a testament to the work being done by the local officials on the ground. And obviously the two campaigns are there as well. I think the most notable, to answer your question very directly, the most notable thing about the Minnesota system, which is a positive, in which every Minnesotan should take pride in, is the fact that there is an opportunity for a hand count. There are states that only provide for a recount to essentially be a rerunning of the ballots through the same machinery. The fact that Minnesota allows a more accurate voting system for the second count, which is a physical inspection of the ballot, really, I think, reflects well on the state and the decisions that the legislature has made.
Mark, have you gotten the absentee voter rejection list from Ramsey County and other counties? And if so, what are you doing with that information? Are you calling people now, going door to door? What are you doing with that?
We got the information we got the lists from Ramsey County, and let me be clear, it is just that, it is lists plural. The court order, if you read it, does not require a county to compile a master list for us. It does not require it to go out and create data. What it requires is that and in fact, I think there was something in the order, I may be wrong, but you all can check this. I believe there was actually something in the order specifically that said they didn't have to go out and create data. That what they're required to do is give us the data they have. So in some jurisdictions, that's going to be a single list. In other jurisdictions, it's going to be multiple lists that they already had, some maybe by type, others maybe by jurisdiction. Municipality. And in some places, it may very well be that they don't actually currently have lists of every rejected absentee ballot to even produce. So to answer your question directly, what we're doing is we are trying to compile that data. We got the order yesterday. Ramsey County did comply, and we thank Ramsey County for its cooperation and it's the professional way in which it handled this through the litigation and afterwards. We are now working to try to obtain that same information from the other counties. We recognize that we are in a hurry. It has been, it's been less than 24 hours, and these folks are also running a recount. So we're trying to work constructively with those counties to get access to that data and then compile it.
And then what will you do with the data?
We will use, what we've said is the first thing we'll do with that data is figure out what it says. I mean, I think some of you may have a misimpression about what these lists show. Different counties compile it differently. Different counties describe why the ballots were rejected differently. So the very first thing we will do is the responsible thing, which is to look at it, look at those lists, try to figure out what are the basis of these ballots being rejected. I mean, let's start with the fact that I said in the first press conference we did on this. This was a lawsuit over access to data. It was not a lawsuit to put votes in the count. The vast majority of ballots that were rejected most likely properly, right? So what we're trying to do is first figure out what that universe of rejected ballots are, and then once we can figure out what these lists mean, we will be able to have a better judgment as to whether or not there likely are or are not ballots that were rejected improperly. So let me give you an example. There might be a code that a county might have that says the reason why the absentee ballot was rejected was because the person. Okay, well, obviously that person voted. They were not disenfranchised. There is no reason to knock on their door or call them or do anything with that. So I know there's great interest on your all's part to try to jump 3 steps down the road as to what we're going to do, but the first thing we're going to try and do is figure out what the picture looks like, which is the reason why we went to court to begin with.
Have any other counties come forward?
How many ballots, rejected absentee ballots, do you now know about?
I mean, I think like Mark said, the data that we have gotten in isn't always an Excel spreadsheet that we can look and see a number. And well, you guys are obviously looking for that number, and it's public data that I know some outlets have tried to chase down some rough estimates for. That's not always easy for us to immediately glean from the information that we've
We
got.
do this every day. I mean, shouldn't you have now figured out that we're going to ask you tomorrow or the next day?
Well, I mean, and that's fine, and that makes my life a little uncomfortable for a moment. But at the end of the day, what we're concerned about is not the raw number of ballots that were rejected. What we're concerned about is wanting to know why ballots were being rejected from the different counties.
So do you still not know the number that you supposedly you already know about, the counties that you already know?
I don't have a number to give you that there were X ballots that we know about that were rejected.
Do you even know Ramsey? Now that you have the list, do you even know the number there?
Well, and Mark, I'll let you describe this again, but
Again, we've received multiple different lists, and again, I'm sure a number of news outlets are going to go and figure this out themselves, and you can then report the numbers yourself. I don't want to be in a position of giving you a number that is open to debate, depending on how you parcel out and count up these lists. If this is a number that is meaningfully important to you, there is already, I think, one news outlet that is already compiling this themselves, and I suspect if multiple of you compile them, you'll probably come up with different numbers. So our focus here is not actually on how many the numbers are. It's as strange as this may sound, it's not even a relevant statistic for me as someone who worries about all aspects of this count. Because to know that there were a lot of rejected ballots, well, I knew there were a lot of rejected ballots. So whether it was X number or Y number doesn't really matter. What I want to know is why were they rejected? And what is the universe of potential ballots that maybe were wrongfully rejected?
Mark, you had said that you think that it's pretty clear that some of the Coleman challenges were frivolous or non-meritorious. Are you confident that all of the Franken campaign challenges were sound, or is it possible you guys jumped the gun on it?
It's a very fair question, and it is part of our review. And if there are instances where we look at a ballot and we say, geez, in the heat of the passion, some staffer challenged this ballot, there is a process to withdraw challenges, and that's part of what we review for.
Do you have copies of all the challenge ballots now, so you can look at them?
Do we have copies of all the challenge ballots? We are provided copies of all the challenge ballots, but understand they are provided at 120 locations, threads throughout the state. So I don't want you to believe that there is
we got a PDF
file. we are. That's why I said yesterday we are compiling, and it is much more of a compilation than it is a done compilation.
Have you guys gone any further on the question, or seen any trends on the undervote question? There's anecdotal reports yesterday that a lot of the Obama voters didn't fill out the rest of their ballots, and so there aren't any unseen Franken ballots to mine in those Obama ballots. But have you seen any trend that tell you that your undercount hopes are dashed in any way?
Well, again, we're not going to make projections. So we're going to let you all make projections. We're going to let other outside bloggers make projections. We know this. We know we picked up votes yesterday. We know we picked up votes in excess by the end of the count. as opposed to by 8 p.m. We know we picked up more votes than what was been reported on the Secretary of State's last night, and obviously that'll be updated every night, so you'll have a running tally. Some number of those presumably came from undervotes. I don't have an analysis to tell you how many of them came from undervotes versus faint marks or some other reason.
Could you just imagine just quickly, what's the difference between your number right now as of this moment and the Secretary of State's number?
As I've said now on a variety of topics, we're not going to be putting out what our internal numbers are specifically, because then what we're going to wind up with is spending all day long with you all trying to square our numbers to Secretary of State's numbers and figure out why they're different and how they're different. What we're trying to give you is a lay of the land of where we see things. The Secretary of State's numbers are ultimately the ones in control, right? Those are the official numbers. What we get called in from our staff, we have a great deal of confidence in, because we have people at every counting location and at every counting table. But I think there is a real danger that if we wind up putting out a number again, you all will say, but you counted this one, but you didn't count this one. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to play a gotcha game here. We're not trying to project, and more importantly, we're not trying to project where it's going. We're just trying to answer the questions that you all have had for us over the last couple of days about what kind of trends are we seeing, where do we think things are in the aggregate.
Mark, is it your belief that you picked up more votes than you see on the Secretary of State's website?
Yes, I've already said that.
Okay.
And can we take a phone question just to keep folks from hanging up before we?
Because we've had not great success with this before.
Anybody on the phone?
Since not, let me ask a question.
I'm going to call in next time.
Yeah, and I was going to say, can one of you just call? Can you just like dial in? And, and that's why yesterday was the only day we got a call a question.
Since you got the Ramsey County decision, have other counties been knocking down your door trying to give you a list of rejected absentee ballots?
You know, it's interesting. There's a lot of knocking down doors going on here. Yesterday, I was knocking down Fritz Connacht's door. Today, the counties are they knocking down our door? They're not knocking down our door. I mean, again, we are getting data. I don't have the latest. I don't have actually the latest update on how many counties have or haven't. Andy may given us the data. We continue to get it. I have every reason to believe that the counties want to do the right thing.
Are you getting more since the judge? Okay.
Yeah.
How many do you have then?
I mean, as of the last time I interrupted the people who've been up all night looking at these ballots as they've been coming in to ask, well, how many counties have gotten their lists in? It was around 3 dozen.
Okay. What will you do when you find out the universe of wrongfully rejected absentee ballots?
Mark took a whack at this, but I'll take a crack at it too. I mean, we're taking it one step at a time, and the first thing that we're going to do is figure out what that universe is.
So how will that help you win the recount if you don't knock on doors?
I hear your question, but we really are taking it one step at a time. We're not going to speculate as to what the next step might be in the step after that.
But you have people paying to go through all of these ballots.
Ballots or lists?
I'm sorry, the rejected absentee lists. So you must be looking for something.
We're looking to find out what the universe is. And
Let me give you an example.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's just imagine we get these lists, and every entry says ballot denied because they are a foreign national. Okay? Then there's no doors to knock on. Right? Now let's say we get another list, and every line says we had an administrative error at the county, and their ballot should have been counted. Now, obviously, those are two very, very stark examples, and I use them, not to make you laugh, but because until you know why they were rejected, what follow-up you would do or wouldn't do doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, unless you know, there are some of these reasons for which there are rejections. There wouldn't be a reason in the world to knock on their door. There wouldn't be any reason in the world to take their call if they call us, and we are getting calls from people as well as reaching out to people. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in an orderly fashion, which is perhaps not the way that you all would do it, but it's the way we've set this up, which is we're going to take all this in and we're going to look at it and we're going to analyze it, and then we're going to make a decision what the next step is.
Thank you.
Have you made plans to go to court on any other counties to see if you get their list?
As of now, we have not. Again, we anticipate that the counties will want to follow the law, and we have. Once they become aware of the Ramsey County, aware of the Ramsey County decision, we have every reason to believe they'll comply with it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.